At exactly 11:42 a.m., with 200 guests standing, music playing, and flower petals still falling, the groom did something no one expected. He stepped back from the altar. He removed his ring, and without saying a single word, he turned and walked away. But before he left, he pressed play on a video that would change everything. What appeared on that screen wasn't a wedding tribute. It wasn't a montage of happy memories. It was evidence, raw, undeniable evidence of a betrayal so deep, it shattered more than a marriage. It exposed a truth about trust, pride, and the cost of ignoring what we feel deep inside. Stay with me till the end, because this wasn't just a wedding canceled. It was a life rewritten. This is the story of a man who had everything except the truth. A self-made millionaire who built empires but couldn't see the betrayal happening in his own home. A woman who wore white on her wedding day but had been living in shadows for far longer than anyone knew. And a moment of discovery so devastating, it turned celebration into reckoning in less than 3 minutes. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's based on a real event that happened in Seattle just 2 years ago. The names have been changed, but the emotions, the decisions, the heartbreak, all of it is real. And if you've ever ignored your gut feeling because you wanted something to work, this story will shake you. Stay with me till the end, because what Marcus did in that cathedral wasn't just about revenge. It was about choosing dignity over delusion. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Now let's go back to where it all began. Not on the wedding day, not even when they met, but 6 months before the altar when the first crack appeared and Marcus, like so many of us, chose to look away. Marcus Chun was 41 years old when he decided it was time to settle down. He'd spent the last 2 decades building a commercial real estate portfolio that made him one of the most successful developers on the West Coast. He didn't come from money. His parents had immigrated from Taiwan with 2 suitcases and a dream that their son would have opportunities they never did. Marcus honored that dream with discipline. He woke up at 5 every morning. He read contracts over breakfast. He made decisions based on logic, never emotion. And he built wealth quietly, without flash, without arrogance. But wealth, as he would later realize, doesn't make you immune to loneliness. By his late 30s, Marcus had everything except someone to share it with. His friends were married. His siblings had families. And every holiday dinner reminded him that success without connection felt hollow. So when he met Olivia Grant at a charity gala in downtown Seattle, he allowed himself to hope. She was 33, radiant, effortlessly social. She worked in marketing for a tech startup and seemed to know everyone in the room. Where Marcus was reserved, she was warm. Where he calculated, she laughed. She made him feel lighter. And for a man who'd carried the weight of responsibility his entire life, that feeling was intoxicating. They started dating in March. By June, they were inseparable. By September, Marcus had introduced her to his family, and by Christmas, he'd bought a ring. Everyone told him he was lucky. His mother adored her. His business partners joked that Olivia had softened him, made him more human. Even Marcus believed it. He believed that love could be this easy, this natural. That after years of caution, he'd finally found someone worth the risk. But love, as he would soon learn, isn't always what it appears to be. Especially when the person you're loving is performing a role they've rehearsed too many times before. The engagement was announced in January. The wedding was set for late July. A summer ceremony at a historic cathedral with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough space for 200 guests. Olivia handled most of the planning. She had vision, she said. She wanted everything to be perfect. Marcus trusted her. He was busy closing a major deal in Portland, so he let her take the lead. Looking back, he would wonder if that's when things started shifting. When she stopped asking his opinion. When she started coming home later. When her phone became something she guarded instead of something she casually left on the counter. Marcus remembered one evening in particular. It was early April, about 3 months before the wedding. They were supposed to have dinner together at his penthouse. He'd ordered from her favorite Italian place, opened a bottle of wine, set the table by the window overlooking the city lights. Olivia arrived 40 minutes late. Her hair was slightly disheveled. Her lipstick faded. She apologized, said traffic had been terrible, kissed him quickly and went straight to the bathroom. When she came back, she seemed distracted. Checked her phone 3 times during dinner. Laughed at his jokes a beat too late, like she was somewhere else entirely. Marcus asked if everything was okay. She smiled that perfect smile and said she was just tired from work. And he believed her, because what else could he do? Accuse her of something based on a feeling? That wasn't who Marcus was. He dealt in facts, in evidence, in things that could be proven. Feelings were messy. Feelings led to mistakes. So he pushed the unease aside and poured her more wine. The first real sign came in May. Marcus had flown back early from a business trip to surprise Olivia with dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant. He used his key to let himself into her apartment around 6 in the evening. The lights were off, but he heard her voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone, laughing, speaking in that low, intimate tone people use when they're comfortable with someone. Marcus didn't think much of it at first. He assumed she was talking to a friend, maybe her sister. But then he heard her say something that stopped him cold. "I know, baby, I know. Just a few more weeks and this whole thing will be over. I promise." Marcus stood in the hallway, his heart pounding. Baby? She'd never called him that. And what did she mean by this whole thing? He knocked lightly on the bedroom door. The conversation stopped immediately. When Olivia looked back, her face was flushed, her smile tight. "Marcus, I didn't know you were coming back early." He asked who she was talking to. She said it was her cousin, dealing with some family drama. She kissed him quickly and changed the subject. And Marcus, God help him, let it go, because he wanted to believe her. Because the wedding was 2 months away and doubt felt more dangerous than faith. But doubt doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It festers. It grows. It starts whispering in the moments you're supposed to feel happiest. Over the next few weeks, Marcus noticed more. Olivia's phone buzzing at odd hours. Her stepping outside to take calls. Her sudden interest in working late, even on weekends. She said the startup was demanding. She said the wedding stress was getting to her. And every time Marcus felt suspicion rising, he pushed it down. Because he loved her. Because calling off a wedding 2 months out would humiliate both of them. Because maybe, just maybe, he was being paranoid. His best friend, David, noticed something was off. They were at a bar one evening in mid-June, watching a basketball game, when David asked the question Marcus had been avoiding. "You sure about this wedding, man? You seem off." Marcus laughed it off, said he was fine, just stressed about work. But David didn't let it go. "Look, I'm not trying to get in your business, but Olivia was at that new lounge downtown last Thursday. I saw her with some guy. Looked pretty cozy." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He asked what David meant by cozy. David shrugged. "I don't know, man. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a work thing. But you might want to ask her about it." Marcus didn't ask, because deep down he was terrified of what the answer might be. Then came the night that changed everything. It was 3 days before the wedding. Marcus had stayed late at the office to finalize some documents. He got home around 11 and texted Olivia goodnight. She responded immediately. "In bed. So tired. Love you." But something didn't sit right. Call it intuition. Call it fear. Call it the universe finally forcing him to see what he'd been avoiding. Marcus opened the location-sharing app they'd set up months earlier for convenience. It showed Olivia's phone at a hotel downtown. Not her apartment. Not a friend's place. A hotel. His hands shook as he stared at the screen. There had to be an explanation. Maybe she was helping with last-minute wedding logistics. Maybe the venue was nearby. Maybe she'd dropped her phone and someone else had it. But even as he formed these excuses, he knew. Deep down, he knew. Marcus got in his car and drove to the hotel. A boutique spot near Pike Place Market, the kind with dim lighting and discretion. He parked across the street and waited. And at 12:47 a.m., he saw her. Olivia, stepping out of the lobby, laughing, her arm linked with a man Marcus didn't recognize. The man was younger, maybe late 20s, wearing a leather jacket and jeans. He kissed her. Not a friendly peck. A deep, familiar kiss. The kind that told Marcus this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine. Marcus sat in his car, trembling, tears blurring his vision. He didn't confront them. He didn't yell. He just watched as they got into a car together and drove away. And then, in the silence of that parking lot, he made a decision. He wasn't going to cancel the wedding quietly. He wasn't going to let her spin a story or play the victim. He was going to make sure everyone saw exactly who she was. Because this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every person who'd taken time off work to celebrate with them. Every family member who'd traveled across the country. Every friend who'd bought gifts and sent well wishes. They all deserved to know the truth. And Olivia deserved to face the consequences of her choices. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk, laptop open, scrolling through months of credit card statements, text message timestamps, anything that could give him answers. And the more he looked, the clearer it became. Olivia had been living a double life. Charges at restaurants Marcus had never been to. Hotel stays during weekends she claimed to be visiting her sister. Venmo payments to a name Marcus didn't recognize. The same name that appeared in her Instagram likes and comments. The man from the hotel was named Tyler. Personal trainer. 28 years old. And based on what Marcus found, they'd been involved for at least 8 months. Maybe longer. The rage Marcus felt wasn't loud. It was cold. Calculated. The same energy he used to close business deals. He wasn't going to act on emotion. He was going to act on evidence. He hired a private investigator. Not for closure, he already had that. But for proof. Video proof. The kind that couldn't be explained away or denied. The investigator was a woman named Rebecca. Mid-50s, professional with 30 years of experience tracking down cheating spouses. She didn't judge. She didn't offer sympathy. She just asked Marcus what he needed and got to work. Within 24 hours, she had Tyler's full profile. His address, his work schedule, his social media accounts. She followed him for 2 days. Documented every meeting with Olivia. Every touch, every kiss, every moment they thought no one was watching. The investigator delivered 2 days before the wedding. A flash drive containing footage from the week prior. Tyler and Olivia at a coffee shop, hands intertwined. Tyler and Olivia at his apartment, kissing in the doorway. Tyler and Olivia in a car, her head on his shoulder, both of them laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Marcus watched the videos once. That was enough. He called Rebecca and asked if the footage was admissible, if it was clear enough. She told him it was crystal clear. Time-stamped, geotagged, undeniable. Marcus thanked her, paid her fee, and asked her to keep everything confidential. Then he sat alone in his office and cried. Not because he still loved Olivia, but because he mourned the version of her he'd believed in. The woman who didn't exist. The day before the wedding, Marcus went through the motions. He attended the rehearsal dinner, smiled at toasts, shook hands with Olivia's family. Her father pulled him aside and told him how proud he was to have Marcus as a son-in-law. Her mother hugged him and whispered that she'd never seen Olivia so happy. Marcus nodded, said all the right things, and inside he felt nothing but cold resolve. Olivia was glowing that night. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair pulled back, diamond earrings catching the light. She held Marcus's hand during dinner, kissed his cheek when the speeches got emotional. To everyone watching, they were the perfect couple. But Marcus knew the truth. And he knew that by the next afternoon, everyone else would too. That night, as they said goodnight outside the restaurant, Olivia hugged him tight. "I can't wait to marry you tomorrow," she whispered. Marcus held her for a moment. Then he stepped back, looked her in the eyes and said, "Me too." It wasn't a lie. He really couldn't wait, because tomorrow he was going to be free. The morning of the wedding, Marcus woke up calm. He showered, dressed in his custom suit, and put the flash drive in his pocket. His best man, David, arrived at his penthouse around 9 to help him get ready. David could tell something was different. "You nervous?" he asked. Marcus smiled. No. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. David didn't press. They talked about basketball, about work, about everything except what was about to happen. At 10:30, Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you so much. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, see you soon. At the cathedral, guests arrived in waves. Friends, family, business associates. Everyone dressed in their finest, cameras ready, smiles wide. The florist had done an incredible job. White roses and peonies lined the aisle. Candles flickered on every surface. The string quartet warmed up in the corner. It looked like a fairy tale. Olivia was in the bridal suite, surrounded by bridesmaids, makeup artists, champagne. She looked stunning. The dress was perfect. The flowers were perfect. Everything was exactly as she'd planned. Except for one thing. She had no idea what Marcus knew. And she had no idea what was about to happen. Marcus arrived at the cathedral at 11:15. He greeted guests, thanked people for coming. His mother hugged him and told him how handsome he looked. His father shook his hand and said he was proud of him. Marcus smiled, nodded, felt the weight of the flash drive in his pocket. David pulled him aside. You ready for this? Marcus looked at his best friend. The man who'd stood by him through every failure, every success, every late-night existential crisis. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I need you to do something for me. He handed David the flash drive and explained what was on it. David's face went pale. Marcus, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure. David nodded slowly. All right, man. I've got you. At 11:45, the officiant signaled that it was time to begin. Marcus took his position at the altar. His groomsmen flanked him. The guests stood. The music shifted. And Olivia appeared at the back of the cathedral. She was breathtaking. The dress fit perfectly, flowing behind her like water. Her veil was delicate, embroidered with tiny flowers. Her smile was radiant. Her father walked beside her, beaming with pride. Every step brought her closer to Marcus, closer to the moment she thought she'd been waiting for. But Marcus stood perfectly still. His face was unreadable. His hands were steady, and in his mind he was counting down. 10 more steps. 5, 3. Olivia reached the front. Her father kissed her cheek, his eyes misty, and took his seat in the first row. She turned to Marcus, eyes shining, bouquet trembling slightly in her hands. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Marcus and Olivia in holy matrimony. Marriage is a sacred bond, built on trust, honesty, and love. The words hung in the air like a cruel joke. And that's when Marcus raised his hand. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Before we continue, there's something everyone needs to see. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Olivia's smile faltered. Marcus, what are you? He looked at David, who nodded and walked to the side of the altar where the projector had been set up for a slideshow of their relationship photos. David inserted the flash drive. The screen behind the altar flickered on, and the video began to play. The first clip showed Olivia and Tyler at a restaurant, leaning across the table, laughing. The timestamp read Tuesday, July 18th. For days ago. The second clip showed them walking hand in hand through a park. Wednesday, July 19th. The third showed them kissing outside an apartment building. Thursday, July 20th. The audio was muted, but it didn't need sound. The images spoke for themselves. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Someone else said, "Is that her?" Olivia's face drained of color. She reached for Marcus, but he stepped back. "Don't," he said, his voice steady but heavy with hurt. "Don't say a word." Her father stood up, confused. "What is this? What's going on?" Her mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. The bridesmaids looked at each other in shock. One of them started crying. Tyler wasn't at the wedding, he hadn't been invited, but his face was unmistakable on that screen. and so was Olivia's. The final clip played. Dated Friday, July 21st. Just yesterday. Olivia and Tyler in his car, her hand on his face, both of them smiling. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn to the rehearsal dinner. The same diamond earrings. The screen went black. Silence. Not a single person moved. Not a single person spoke. Marcus looked at Olivia. Not with anger. Not with hatred. Just with a calm, final clarity. And when he spoke, his voice carried through the entire cathedral. "I loved you," he said. "I loved you with everything I had. I introduced you to my family. I trusted you with my future. I believed in us." His voice cracked slightly, but he kept going. "But I won't marry someone who's been lying to me for months. I won't build a life on a foundation of betrayal. And I won't pretend that any of this was real." Olivia's mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her makeup, but Marcus didn't look away. "You don't get to explain," he said. "You don't get to apologize. You don't get to make this about how sorry you are. Because if I hadn't found out, you would have stood here and said vows you never meant. You would have taken my name. You would have taken my life. And you would have kept lying." The cathedral was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Marcus took off his boutonniere and set it on the altar. Then he turned, walked down the aisle, and left the cathedral. The doors closed behind him with a soft thud. 200 guests sat frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. Olivia stood at the altar, alone, her bouquet hitting the floor. And for the first time in months, the mask she'd been wearing finally fell away. The minutes after Marcus left felt like hours. Olivia stood at the altar, unable to move, unable to think. Her bridesmaids rushed to her side, but she pushed them away. Her mother tried to reach her, but Olivia collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. The guests didn't know what to do. Some started leaving quietly, embarrassed, unsure if they should say anything. Others stayed frozen in their seats, processing what they'd just witnessed. Olivia's father stormed out of the cathedral, phone pressed to his ear, trying to reach someone, anyone who could explain what had just happened. Her mother stayed behind, kneeling beside her daughter, whispering words that didn't matter anymore. Outside, Marcus got into his car and drove. He didn't have a destination. He just needed to move. His phone was blowing up. Texts from David, from his family, from guests asking if he was okay. He turned it off. He drove north along the coast, windows down, letting the wind drown out the noise in his head. He thought about the last year. Every moment he'd convinced himself things were fine. Every red flag he'd rationalized away. Every time his gut had screamed at him and he'd chosen hope over truth. The story spread fast. By that evening, it was all over social media. Not because Marcus shared it, he never said a word publicly, but because guests couldn't help themselves. Videos of the wedding had been leaked. Screenshots of the projector screen circulated on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The comments were divided. Some defended Marcus, called him brave, said Olivia got what she deserved. Others called him cruel for humiliating her in front of everyone, said he should have handled it privately. Some blamed Olivia entirely. Others said Marcus must have been a bad partner if she felt the need to cheat. The opinions were endless, contradictory, exhausting. But Marcus didn't care about any of it. He'd done what he needed to do, not for revenge, not for attention, but because he refused to start a marriage based on deception. And because somewhere deep inside, he needed the world to witness his decision so he couldn't second-guess it later. So he couldn't let guilt or loneliness pull him back into something that was never real. Olivia tried reaching out. The first message came 2 days after the wedding. A long email where she cried and apologized and swore Tyler meant nothing. Said it was a mistake. Said she was scared of commitment and self-sabotaged. Said she loved Marcus and would do anything to fix it. Marcus read it once, then deleted it. The messages kept coming. Voicemails where she sobbed. Texts begging him to meet her just once so she could explain. Letters delivered to his office by courier. Each one more desperate than the last. But Marcus never responded. because there was nothing left to say. She hadn't just cheated. She'd lied. She'd manipulated. She'd built an entire life on performance. And Marcus had learned the hard way that you can't fix someone who won't admit they're broken. Tyler, interestingly, disappeared, deleted his social media, quit his job at the gym, moved to another city, according to someone who knew someone. He wanted no part of the fallout. And Olivia was left to face the consequences alone. 6 months later, Marcus returned to Seattle. He'd spent that time traveling. Italy, where he walked the Amalfi Coast and didn't think about anything but the sound of the waves. Japan, where he sat in quiet temples and learned to meditate. Thailand, where he volunteered at a school and remembered what it felt like to help people without expecting anything in return. He came back different, lighter, more at peace with himself. He sold the engagement ring and donated the money to a nonprofit that supported children of immigrants, honoring his parents, honoring the values that had built him. He went back to work, but differently, with more balance, more boundaries. He stopped taking calls after 6, started going to therapy, reconnected with old friends he'd neglected while trying to build the perfect life. And slowly, carefully, he started to rebuild. Not the life he'd lost, but a new one. One where he didn't ignore his instincts. One where he didn't settle for someone who only loved the idea of him. People still asked about the wedding. At business meetings, at social events, at family gatherings. Some were sympathetic. Others were nosy. Marcus's answer was always the same, calm and measured. It wasn't the right fit. I'm grateful I found out when I did. And when people pressed, asked if he regretted the way he handled it, his response never changed. No, I regret not trusting myself sooner. Because the truth is, Marcus had known something was wrong long before that hotel parking lot. He'd felt it in the silences, in the deflections, in the way Olivia's affection felt rehearsed instead of real. But he'd ignored it, because he wanted the dream more than he wanted the truth. And that, he realized, was the real lesson. Not that people lie, but that we often help them by refusing to see. Marcus also learned something else. That walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. That public humiliation is temporary, but living a lie is permanent. That sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop pretending everything is fine when it's clearly not. A year after the wedding that never happened, Marcus was sitting in a coffee shop in Seattle when he saw her. Olivia. She was across the street, walking with a woman he didn't recognize. Her hair was shorter. She looked thinner, older somehow. She didn't see him, and Marcus realized something in that moment. He didn't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no longing, just indifference. And that's how he knew he'd healed. Because the opposite of love isn't hate. It's apathy. It's reaching a place where someone who once meant everything now means nothing at all. Marcus finished his coffee and left. Went about his day. And he never looked back. His mother asked him once if he thought he'd ever get married. If he could trust someone again after what happened. Marcus thought about it for a long time before answering. Yeah, he said finally. I think I will. But next time I'll listen when something feels off. I'll trust myself more than I trust the appearance of happiness. His mother smiled, squeezed his hand. That's all any of us can do. Marcus eventually did find someone. 2 years later, he met a woman named Sarah at a book club his sister had dragged him to. Sarah was a teacher, quiet, thoughtful, with a laugh that was genuine and unguarded. They took things slow. Marcus was honest about his past, about the wedding, about his fears, and Sarah listened without judgment. She didn't try to fix him, didn't promise she'd never hurt him. She just showed up, consistently, honestly, and over time Marcus learned to trust again. Not blindly, but wisely. They got married 3 years later. Small ceremony, 50 guests, no projector, just vows that meant something because they were built on truth. And when people asked Marcus what the difference was between Olivia and Sarah, his answer was simple. Sarah doesn't perform love. She lives it. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If you were Marcus, would you have walked away? Or would you have stayed silent to avoid the embarrassment, the judgment, the collapse of something you'd invested so much into? And if you were in the crowd that day, watching that screen light up, what would you have felt? Sympathy? Shock? Secondhand shame? Or maybe relief that someone finally chose truth over comfort? Love is supposed to be built on trust. But trust isn't just about fidelity. It's about honesty. It's about showing up as your real self, not a carefully edited version designed to keep someone hooked. Olivia didn't just betray Marcus physically. She betrayed him by pretending, by making him believe in a future that was never real. And Marcus didn't just walk away from a wedding. He walked away from a life that would have slowly destroyed the best parts of him. That takes strength most people don't have. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you ignored your instincts because acknowledging them would mean facing something painful? How many times have you chosen comfort over truth? We all do it. It's human. But Marcus's story reminds us that there's a cost to that choice. And sometimes that cost is our own dignity. So let me ask you one more time. How would you feel if this happened to you? If the person you loved, the person you were about to commit your life to, had been lying the entire time? Would you have the courage to walk away? Drop a comment. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me if you think Marcus did the right thing, or if there was a better way. Tell me about a time you ignored your gut feeling and what happened. And if the story stirred something in you, share it. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that it's okay to walk away. That self-respect isn't selfish. That sometimes the hardest endings are the most necessary ones. Subscribe if you haven't already. We have more stories like this. Real stories, painful stories, stories that remind us we're human, flawed, and still capable of choosing ourselves even when it hurts. Thank you for staying till the end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.